This is the focus on the vital few, the critical business practices that lead to exceptional results with Tammy Niemann from Rock Life Consulting and Wendy Rettenmeier with Rettenmeier Performance Consulting. Just a couple housekeeping reminders. Please mute your microphones if you haven't already, and then please turn off your video so that we can save bandwidth for our presenters. And then we will take questions throughout, so feel free to drop those in the chat. Ben, you're ready to go.
Thank you very much, Molly. Again, as Molly said, my name is Ben Schultz. I'm the Client Services Coordinator at the Iowa Center for Economic Success, and I'm very excited to be introducing our two speakers today for this session focusing on the vital few with Tammy Niemann and Wendy Rettenmeier. Tammy Niemann is the founder and consulting principal of Rock Life Consulting, and she specializes in using simple tools to help entrepreneurs and leaders set a solid foundation for their business. As a people developer at heart, Tammy believes people and businesses have great potential, but we're often too wrapped up in the chaos of the day to ever become exceptional. She's driven by the desire to partner with small business leaders to help them get where they want to go. Tammy spent her career working with independent small business owners and large corporations on company-wide initiatives. Having built employee development and onboarding programs at Vermeer Corporation and training programs for John Deere ISG, she understands how process planning and execution are pivotal to success. Tammy currently works with clients as a Rejuve certified trusted partner, an EOS implementer, and leadership development coach. Our other presenter, Wendy Rettenmeier, is founder of Rettenmeier Performance Consulting, and she specializes in inspiring leaders and organizations to discover possibilities and become what they are meant to be. Distinguished for her signature blend of high touch with client-centric focus and her unique understanding of the business and the people who drive it passionately, Wendy develops on-point, innovative solutions that deliver results. As the founder of a consulting practice, Wendy has extensive experience in leadership development and performance improvement and has worked with both small business owners and large corporate clients across many industries. She has served in both leadership and individual contributor positions within EMC insurance companies, Guide One Insurance, and ITA Group organizations. Wendy has also completed a graduate degree in organizational development and performance from Drake University. We're very excited to hear from both of you. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Tammy.
Okay, thank you, Ben, for that wonderful introduction. Wendy and I are so glad to be here with you today, and we applaud your participation in these virtual sessions, especially with the fabulous weather out in Des Moines today. 75-degree afternoon. You do not often get that in November. So thank you for being with us. And, you know, we're just happy for this exchange. We know it's been a really different year. And so we're just really glad to be able to share some of our ideas with you.
So Tammy, can we just stop real quickly? And as I shared the screen, is the right thing coming through to you?
It is not in presentation mode.
Okay, hold on a second.
Give us 1 second to fix that.
How's that look?
Now flip your display settings.
Flip it, okay.
There we go.
Good, all right.
Now we're good. Okay, we can begin. So I saw Wendy dropped this into the chat. This is a link for our handout. Also, you may have seen it in the program if you looked that over. It's the same handout. Just want to tell you we're going to use this later. If you're somebody who likes to print, go ahead and print this so we can use it a little bit later. Also, you can link to it electronically. So just want to let you know that is there. We'll get to it a little bit later in our session. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So as you look at this particular slide and you think about your typical day, does the picture on the left resonate more with you or the picture on the right? As small business owners, we are so focused on the daily activities it takes to drive revenue and really survive the day, or even completely change the way we do business in the midst of a pandemic, that often our day looks like the picture on the left, a scrambled mess of activity. Can you relate? I know I can. Wouldn't we like our day to look more like the picture on the right? Something more consistent, something smoother, something more orderly. What Wendy and I would like to do today is to help you move from that picture on the left to the picture on the right. It's time to realize the vital few, those critical missing practices that can help you gain more control and drive exceptional results in your business. There is a way. Let us introduce you to the backward Z. The backward Z is a model any small business owner can use to impact their business and move it forward by focusing on strategic intent, which is where are we headed and why. Market intelligence, defined as what is going on in the market and how do we need to be structured to take advantage of those particular circumstances. Target, defining the right work for our organization and also defining milestones in order to get that work done. And implement, defining how far and how fast we should go and making sure that our team is at their best along the way. Now you might ask yourself, why does something like the backward Z matter? It matters because it helps leaders gain clarity about their business and where they should focus their time. One use case found that companies who use improved effectiveness models like the backward Z have 4 times the results of those who do not. Now, if we think about it, that's 4 times the revenue, 4 times the market share, 4 times the customer and employee satisfaction, 4 times all of those key business indicators. I don't know about you, but that's enough to get my attention. Let us show you how. Let's take a look at the backward Z in action. I'd like to introduce you to a small business owner named Sherry. This is a picture of Sherry. Sherry and her husband, Craig, started Top Plastics, a plastics container manufacturing business 15 years ago. Sherry is CEO of that company. They were fortunate when they first started their business to land a contract making plastic containers for a large local crop protection business. As their business grew, they also developed a solid customer base in the automotive industry as well, making containers that hold motor oil and fuel additives. Over time, it has been a dependable business, but a competitive one, to be honest. Revenue has been strong, but as mergers and acquisitions have happened over the last few years with their largest account in the crop protection business, Sherry knows they have to find new areas of growth. She can't keep all of her eggs in one basket any longer. Now, in plastics manufacturing, it is possible to serve a wide variety of markets without spending a major investment on new tooling or other production costs. Sherry knows that both the pet product and the cleaning and sanitation markets have both seen a major increase in demand over the last couple of years. Also, with the coronavirus pandemic causing supply shortages, Sherry knows companies are looking for backup suppliers. And this could give Top Plastics a shot at customers they once thought unattainable. Sherry knows she has to explore these options. Now, I want to reassure you that a lot is going well for Top Plastics. For one, Sherry prioritizes yearly strategic planning. She knows she has to get that done in accordance with the yearly budgeting cycle to give her department heads what they need to operate. Also, Sherry has big long-term goals, specifically to be the #1 preferred supplier in their chosen industries in the Midwest by by 2027. Sherry has also been intentional about establishing that vision, mission, and values of Top Plastics. Another thing Sherry and her team are great at, getting stuff done. They are action-oriented. The customer comes first at Top Plastics, which has them working hard each and every day to meet customer needs one at a time. No matter what it is or how long it takes, her leadership team is effective at prioritizing their daily checklist, figuring out the right people to do the work, and then tracking the completion. Sherry rewards her people for their hard work. She's thankful for their loyalty to their organization and for the talent that they have at Top Plastics. But to tell you the truth, Sherry's tired. She's tired of carrying the heavy weight of the business. Maybe you can relate to Sherry and what the picture that you see on this slide. And Sherry's tired of just not being exactly sure where she's headed next. She can't figure out how to bridge the gap between her current reality and her long-term goal. She's too caught up in that day-to-day to make any progress exploring these other markets she needs to take a look at. Remember, I told you earlier, the customer comes first at Top Plastics, and Sherry finds herself wrapped up in that mantra each and every day. She's often at the order desk in the warehouse, like the picture you saw on the previous slide, fixing issues in the supply chain, communicating with distributors, or talking to customers about custom orders. Sherry used to wear all these hats when she and Craig first started the business, and she finds it difficult to shed the responsibilities. Can anyone else relate to this? I know I can. At times, she's not quite sure about the capacity of her team as well. Can they take on some of her responsibilities? They seem to be unsure who does what at times as well. And there's some real lack of definition in the departments, and it's causing everyone to kind of do everything. Sort of a jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing going on. And Sherry's wondering, do I have the right people and the right processes in place to really take us where we need to go? And how about those markets she's considering? How can she best assess them? She and her leadership team, they don't have a shared understanding of these new markets because, quite frankly, they haven't spent the time on the analysis. The marketing and sales department have no alignment currently. Sales is out there chasing every shiny penny in hopes of landing that jackpot deal that will lead them down the path to industry. Sherry has done a great job of leading Top Plastics. She has built the business on two foundational building blocks. The building blocks of strategic intent and implement. Intent is all about her long-term work, establishing that vision, mission, and values that serve as guideposts for her organization. Implement is about their short-term focus. It's about their monthly, weekly, and daily goals, their day-to-day operations, and their customer service. Sherry has done a really great job at those. I think this isn't really that different than most of us. This is how we've been taught to think about our business. We've been taught that if we think about the long term and the short term, it's all going to work out okay. But I'm here to tell you today that that's not quite the full picture, and it's not enough. We've been missing two foundational building blocks to our business planning approach. Let us show you.
So the first building block that Sherry is missing in leading her business is intelligence. And that is the thinking and analysis about what's really going on out there in the marketplace. And she's also missing target, which is where we take those big ideas, our big goals, our long-term goals, and we break them into smaller, midterm chunks. And then we do the hard work of figuring out, well, what's exactly the right work that we need to do in order to really accomplish those goals. So Sherry really needs to work in those two areas, and she also needs to work each building block in a systematic order to drive her business. So we might be asking ourselves, well, why does that matter, right? I mean, Sherry has really good ideas, and they sound pretty good. I mean, they certainly sound good to me, and they sound reasonable to me. Who doesn't want to expand into new markets, especially new markets that sound a lot like the markets that we're currently operating in? And she knows that they have the willpower to just do it. But here's the deal, you guys. Sherry doesn't know what she might be missing in that market. If she does not take the time to go out and gather that market intelligence and check her big ideas, she might miss important data, data that would open up maybe even more markets to her, or different markets she hasn't even thought about, or data that might identify some obstacles that could be in her path that she doesn't have any idea about. And if Top Plastics does not take the time to break down their big term goals, their big long-term goals and strategies into midterm milestones, they risk working on the wrong things in their day-to-day, things that do not support those long-term goals. If Sherry really wants to lead Top Plastics into the future and achieve her long-term goals, she's got to think differently. She needs to focus on the vital few, and she needs to focus on the vital few in the right order, working from intent to intelligence to target to implement. And she needs to focus on the critical business practices that are going to help her move her business forward. Sherry needs to apply the backward Z to her business. So let's move from kind of this high level talk about the model and talk about what it really means to us as small business leaders. Let's talk about what it is that we really need to do. Leading a business is grounded in strategic intent, which is the very first building block. It's all about where is your business going and why is it going there. It's where we're going to determine our long-term drivers and our long-term goals, those strategies for the business. Now, let's be honest, I'm not sure that long-term means exactly what long-term used to mean to us. It's certainly relative. It might be 3 to 5 years for you. It might be 1 to 2 years. Whatever makes sense to you as a business owner in the market that you're operating in. But this is the process about identifying the focus areas of the business. It might be increasing and driving revenue. It might be revamping or developing a new sales approach. It might be creating a new product offering. The critical business practices in intent are vision, mission, and values. That whole idea about, again, where are we headed and why? Competitive landscape. What opportunities are even out there for us? How do we begin to kind of dream about what could be possible? Value proposition. This is the body of work around answering the question, how do we show up for our customers, for our current customers, and for our future customers? What problem do we solve for them? Another body of work is readiness factoring. This is all about determining how ready are we really to do what it is that we think we want to do. What do we currently have that will help us, and what might get in our way? And long-term drivers and goals, where we narrow down what those focus areas are really going to be. What are the big chunks that we want to go after? So think back to Sherry. As she works through the backward Z, she realizes that while she has some areas of opportunity, intent is a strength for her. She has clear vision, mission, and values, and she has identified some potential opportunities, and she's beginning to get a little bit clearer about how she might serve those markets. For example, maybe as a backup supplier or getting into a new market. Our second building block is intelligence. And this is where we focus on really understanding what's going on out there in our market. It's where we road test those big ideas that we have from intent. We figure out, hey, are those ideas viable? We figure out, can our company support them? And if we can, why? And if we can't, why? The critical business practices in intelligence are purpose. First of all, determining why are we doing this work? Why is it important to us? Environment framing, where we take that step out into our market and we begin to ask the questions, does our market need us in this space? Is there a market for our big idea or our goal from strategic intent? Will it support that? Or maybe it will support something entirely different or something we haven't thought about as we do the research. We also begin to ask questions around people capability. Do our people have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do what we want to do? We ask some questions around process capacity. Will our business processes support where we need to go, or will we need to do something different? And we ask some questions about our company structure. Will our company structure support where we need to go, or do we need to do something different? Think back to Sherry and the story that Tammy shared with us. The market intelligence building block is a challenge. It's something that they haven't spent a lot of time in. Sherry has really great ideas from her work in intent, but she's not taking the time to determine if they're viable ideas. She's not taking the time to determine if they are in alignment with Top Plastic's purpose. Is there really a need for another player in the market? She's not really sure that her people can do what they need to do, or if her current processes can really support additional or different production. And she also hasn't really asked anyone if their current structure can handle this type of growth into a new market or additional production. Honestly, Sherry's probably a lot like the rest of us, where we just want to get after it. We just want to do it. And she has great skill in that area. But what could she be missing? She might miss an even bigger opportunity, or she might run into a roadblock that she quite frankly did not anticipate that could really cause throw a wrench into all of her plans. Intelligence is all about, again, checking that big picture thinking, making sure that it's viable, and then taking what we learn and moving back up and adjusting strategic intent before we move on to the next building block. The next building block is target. And in target, we talk and figure out what is the right work to accomplish those long-term drivers and goals from strategic intent. Now that the goals have evolved, maybe based on our market intelligence work, it's time to break them down into achievable, manageable milestones. It's time to figure out what strategies and outcomes need to occur in order to achieve those milestones. It's time to get people on board, to gather feedback and make any adjustments if necessary, so that we can determine who's responsible and who owns each particular milestone. So let's chat through then what those critical business practices are in the target building block. First of all, it's about breaking those long-term drivers and goals into manageable midterm goals. Think manageable, achievable chunks or bodies of work. It's about saying, okay, if that's what we want to do, well, what are the objectives and strategies then for each one of those milestones? So that we can begin to work the circuit. We can begin to run these ideas past our key stakeholders gather feedback, make sure that everybody's on board, and make any changes that we need to make so that we can finalize our outcomes. Because that allows us into the position of saying, okay, let's assign teams, tactics, and timetables. Let's determine who owns each goal and assign due dates to it. When we think back to Sherry, and again, the great story that Tammy shared with us, this has been a missing piece for her as she's thought about how she's running her business. Again, Top Plastics set their long-term annual goal and they got the heck after it. They did not set any midterm goals and strategies. They just get to work and they work super hard, but they never really know where they are. They never really know where they should be, and they aren't really sure how they got there. This is a critical step, especially as Sherry thinks about leaving the organization's comfort zone and venturing out into new and different markets. So that brings us to our last building block, implement. And implement is where we ensure that everybody can bring their very, very best. And it's really where most of us spend our time, getting things done, working hard, and being very, very busy. So we want to make sure in implement that our activity is laser focused on the goals that we set on achieving our midterm strategies, our long-term goals. And in implement, we also need to make sure that we have the ability to say no to those activities that are not in alignment. So let's talk through our critical business practices in implement. The critical business practices are short-term priorities and goals. So each goal or owner that we assigned upstream in Target has to take their midterm goals and strategies and make them come to life here. It's where midterm goals are broken down into monthly, weekly, and those daily expectations. We do some capability and capacity decisioning. This is where we determine, do we have the right people doing the right things? Well, how can we tell? We know what they're supposed to do because we've done a really good job of setting our midterm goals and then breaking them down into our short-term priorities and goals. And we're also tracking to see where we're at and what's being done so that we can enter into coaching, so that we can coach our team members to close any gaps between reality and expectation. How do we know? Because we're tracking our priorities and our goals. We constantly know where we need to be, where we are, and we're adjusting if we need to. And the last body of work in implement is gratitude. And gratitude is where we are constantly acknowledging our wins, and we're constantly acknowledging our learnings along the way. So if we think back to Sherry and the story that we heard, Sherry and Top Plastics have a lot going for them in implement in terms of a strong culture of execution, coaching, and gratitude. Now, they may find as they work the backward Z through all of the building blocks that they need to tweak some of their short-term goals and expectations based on their work upstream and intent and target. And they may need to make some changes along the way, but they will have done the heavy lifting required to be able to break into those new markets.
Sherry reviewed her business in terms of the backwards Z building blocks and those critical business practices. She determined that to achieve her long-term goal, she needed to focus on intelligence and target. Sherry called her leadership team together and talked them through the backwards Z model as well. They determined that the vital few for Top Plastics, those critical business practices, they need to focus on first are environment framing. And this really involves asking themselves, what is happening in the market? And is there room in the market for their product or their idea? They put a plan in motion to gather intelligence and to determine if their long-term drivers and goals are realistic, and if Top Plastics is really positioned to make a move into new markets. They set a timeline to make their final decision about what markets they're going to enter based on what they've learned. Are they going to enter the pet product market? Are they going to enter the cleaning and sanitation market? Is there an entirely new market they're not even aware of yet that would be a better fit? And what about that opportunity as a backup supplier? Once they make their final decision, they need to move to the work in target. They need to break down their work into midterm goals and milestones. Then they need to assign an owner and set deadlines for the work in order to get it done. Now, at this point, if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed by all that Wendy and I've shared, please take heart. It certainly can be if you're trying to do all of this at once, and that is not our intent. This is really, we feel like you've probably been doing some of this work all along. This is about determining those missing pieces where you can make the most impact by picking 2 to 3 vital few practices that can move your business forward. And we're going to give you that opportunity today in this workshop. But before we do that, what questions can we answer for you about the 4 building blocks and the critical business practices of the backwards Z? I'd love for you to just throw any questions you have into the chat box, and we'd be happy to take those at this point. Wendy, while we wait to see if anyone's going to ask any questions in the chat box, I think you had one thing we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I do. And thank you so much for that. So you guys, as I work with a number of small business owners, one question I get frequently is this whole idea about just what is readiness factoring and what's that all about? And it's one of the newest practices to the model as we study exceptional business leaders. It's one thing that we started to see exceptional business leaders do more and more frequently. And so it's such an important piece. So readiness factoring is all about taking the time to have a leadership level discussion about what are our supports and what are our barriers. What's going to really help us to accomplish those big long-term goals? What's going to stand in our way? And I think it's important for 2 reasons. So number one, it's important to have that conversation to make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of what can really help us and what can get in our way. But it also informs that work as we move into market intelligence, and it begins to maybe drive some of the things that we need to figure out in market intelligence to determine, hey, is this the right place for us to be? Are we thinking the right way or not? Or what else are we uncovering? There could be other things that are going really well for us that we didn't think about or we didn't know. There might be other obstacles that we hadn't identified as well. So it's a critical business practice for a good reason, because as we work with exceptional business leaders, this is something that they discovered, a behavior, a practice that they have that has been very, very beneficial to them as they think about where they need to go long term.
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
Yeah.
Any questions in the chat? I do not see any.
All right. Well, how about we just go ahead and we dive in? What do you think?
say we dive in.
Okay.
And get to work on everyone's business.
All right, you guys. So grab your handout. Again, check the link in the chat window. It's there for you as well. Print it, work with it electronically, whatever is easier for you. As we work through each section, we'll kind of take a pause, and you'll have some time to work together. So here's the first piece. As you think about your practice. So think about what Sherry did. She had to take a look at the foundational building blocks, and she had to determine, well, where does she really want to focus from a practice perspective. So what we'd like you to do is just make a check mark in the foundational building block that you think would make the most impact. Now, here's a little bit of caution. This is the seminar or the session in the workshop on the vital few. So it's probably not all 4 building blocks. It's probably 1 or 2 building blocks because we want to narrow our focus. So just a couple seconds, check mark which foundational building block you think would make the most impact for your business. All right, let's take it one level deeper. Circle the 2 to 3 vital few critical business practices that you think will make the most impact for you within that building block. So again, we really want you to stick to 2 or 3. If everything's important, nothing is important. So either circle the practice that is most important to you, or if you're working electronically, you can grab that circle and just pull it straight out. All right, let's go to what I think is probably the most important piece. And it's always the piece that's hardest for me, to be quite honest with you. It's the whole, well, so what are you going to do about it question. So you've got a little bit of space in your handout. What we'd like you to do is we'd like you to just think for a minute or 2 about what you need to do today or tomorrow to get started. And jot that down. As you're thinking that through, if you would like to share your ideas, maybe one thing that you're going to do today or tomorrow to get started, or maybe it's a critical business practice that you're going to be focusing on, please share it in the chat. We'd just like to see a little bit about maybe what you guys are thinking and some of the things that you might be focusing on.
Okay, well, I think people are keeping their ideas to themselves,
I think so.
Wendy, but that might be because you're just thinking about it, and we're completely fine with that. Today, the demand for leadership is fierce. Leaders are being challenged to lead in new and different ways. If you would like to learn more about what Wendy and I have talked about here today, we have a tool that can assess you and your leadership team. It can talk about how you show up in your business as a leader. Please reach out through LinkedIn, through rocklifeconsulting.com, or you see that our email addresses are up on the slide you see in front of you. We are here to help. We are here to help you and your team develop your leadership to drive exceptional results within your business. I'm just so pleased that we could be here with you today. And I see that several people are now sharing some things that they're working on. So please stay with us if you have any questions. And also, we want to read those and discuss them a little bit as well.
I love this. So so the organization focuses a lot on vision, mission, and values, which is such a great start, right? But one of the things that I have really been excited about as I've worked with small business owners is this realization that strategic intent is about so much more than vision, mission, and values. It's such a great start, but we've got to begin to do more. And I love that it's just a little bit interesting, a little bit of a different way to think about it, to expand our thinking, expand our big picture thinking. I found with a couple of folks that I've worked with, it has really helped them to think of different things that they hadn't ever, really wondered about, right? Different markets, especially given what we've faced this year, right? And totally have some businesses totally having to rediscover themselves, do things differently, and find different ways to get to market and to serve people's needs. So thank you so much for that.
So if there are any other questions, we would be happy to stick around and take those that are coming up through the chat. Otherwise, our session is wrapped up, and we wish you all well.
Thank you so much for being here with us, you guys.